So hiding element in CSS is a common technique used to control what users see on the web page. And there are various methods, each serving different purposes depending on the desired outcome. So whether to keep the space or not, accessibility concerns, and so on. All right. So you can hide elements in CSS as the case may be, and we have different ways actually. First, using display none by setting your display property to none. All right. So what this does is that it completely removes the element from the document flow as if it does not exist. All right. And we're going to see that shortly. The effect on layout is that the space taken up by the element is released. And use cases, toggling visibility in interactive elements like drop-down menus. For instance, now if you click a drop-down menu, right, when you click on it, you can actually show the many items that we have for that particular component. And probably if you click on it again, you may decide to hide it. So drop-down menu, removing items from the view temporarily. All right, and then the limitations is that the hidden element is not accessible for screen readers. So it will be taken out of the document flow completely, just like what we see here. So removes the element from the document flow as if it does not exist. So that's the first way, setting display properties to none. Also, using visibility, you set so we have a property in CSS called visibility. You can set the value of this property to hidden. All right. So what this does is that it hides the element but keeps the space it occupies. So you now see the difference between this and display, right? Display will not keep the space, all right? It will be taken out of the document completely. For visibility, you are not going to see the element, but the space for that element will still be there, all right? So it hides the element but keeps the space it occupies. Now the effect on layout is that the element is invisible, but the layout remains unchanged. So the space that you have specified for that element will still be there, basically, even though you can't see the element. Use cases when you want to hide content without affecting the surrounding layout. And the accessibility, the element remains accessible to screen readers. And then this last option here is using opacity by setting the value to 0. Or you can set the value from 0. 0 is the lowest and then 1 is the highest. All right. So if you set opacity to 0, what it does is that it makes the element fully transparent, but does not change its position in the document. The effect on layout, the element still takes up space and can be interacted with. Use cases, animating visibility, e.g. fade in and fade out effect. So if you want to implement the fade in, fade out effect, you can use the visibility. You can use the opacity rather, not the visibility. So you can use the the opacity property. All right, and then accessibility, the element remains focusable and accessible for screen readers. So when to use which method? For display none, use it when you need to remove elements entirely from the layout. And then for visibility hidden, use it to keep the space occupied but hide content. And then for opacity 0, if you want the elements to be hidden but still interactive. All right, so let's see how we can use the stray method in our code. So we have this 3 HTML documents, display.html. So display.html first, okay, which has h1 display and then these 3 divs, box 1, box 2, box 3. So it's the same markup actually. We have the same markup in the visibility.html too. All right, and then if you go to opacity.html, you see the same markup and they are sharing the same style. And the styles.css, we have selected the class, okay, using the class selector, and then in the declaration block we have the display background property set orange, and then width 200 pixels, height 150 pixels, and then margin to the bottom 15 pixels. And if we take a look at the output, we have the stray boxes on the screen. Great. So we actually want to use display property first. Great. I was looking for this display. So we're going to use the display property to hide the second box. All right. To hide the second box. So I will go to display. Okay, display page. So I'm going to use internal CSS that way. So I will use internal CSS. All right. The internal CSS, and then that means we still need to introduce another class, box1, box2, so that we can easily identify the second box actually. All right. So I'll just quickly copy this and replace it in the other markups. So opacity, paste, visibility, paste. Great. All right. So this back to display.html. So what we want to do now is we want to hide the second box, right? That is the one that has another class name of box2. So which means in the internal CSS, we can now say box2, right? Display none. Display none, we hide that element. So if I head back to the browser and refresh, look at it now. We only have box1 and box3. And notice that the space that was specified, that was specified for the second box is no longer there. So which means the element has been taken out of the document flow, and it appears as if the element does not exist. All right, so display will take the element out of the document flow. So that's that for display. So let's look at visibility. Visibility, how to hide elements. Did I get that correctly? Let me check the document again. VC. Okay, I get a typo. Just going to correct this. Visibility. Great. So to visibility now. Great. So we have these three boxes. Now let's now use the visibility property to hide the second box. So let's use the internal CSS again and say box2 visibility. All right, hidden. So if we set it to hidden, save. Now take a look at the output if I refresh. Okay, so I can't see. We can't see the three boxes. What is going on here? Oh, so okay. So I have box instead of box2. So first thing, I'm going to cut this out first and get the three boxes right on the screen. Great. And then I will correct the selector. So it's supposed to be box2, because if we now the time we use box, right, all the three leaves, they have this box class name on them, and that's why you see we couldn't see any element on the screen. So now we have corrected it to box2, save, and then take a look at the output. Look at it here. Box2 is hidden, but the space that was specified for it is still being preserved. So the space is there. Box3 actually did not adjust, okay, to fill up the space for box2. So this is the difference between what's it called, display and visibility, and this is how you can use it to hide elements. So if you're using visibility, please have it in your mind that the space that you specify for that element will still exist, or will still be there right on the screen. All right. So which means it will not affect the surrounding elements, and the surrounding elements are this box1 and box2, obviously, box3 rather. All right. So finally, let's look at how we can hide elements using opacity. So I think for better understanding, I'm going to use it on the three boxes and see how it works basically. So I will head back to opacity.html. Then using the internal CSS, I will say style. All right. And then what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to target the first box, say opacity. Just as I mentioned, it has a value from 0 to 1. 0 means transparent, so it will be transparent completely. So let's give this one. Okay, let's see one. So I actually missed out the dot operator before the class selector there. And then for box 2, opacity 0.5. Okay, 0.5. And then for box 3, opacity 0. All right, so let's see. If I refresh, you see, so 1 means that it won't be transparent. Actually, it will give you the full effect of the elements, just as you can see for box for box 1. And then for box 2, box 2 is a bit more like a semi-transparent effect, right? It's fading out already, but as you can see, we can't even see box 3 again. We can't see box 3. All right, we can see box 3. But the advantage of opacity property is that you can still interact with that element. So for instance, if I take back the style and say box 2 over, okay, the pseudo class over, and say opacity should be set back to 1, right? Refresh. Now if I should move my mouse around this, so I don't know why box 2, let me check again. Box 2, so it's meant to come up anyways. Let's try it on box 3. Opacity set to, oh, sorry. That should be box 3. That's not box 2. That's my mistake. So it's supposed to be box 3. Yes, that's correct. Box 3, because we actually set the opacity to 0, right? And we want to see it anytime we mouse over it, right? So save, back to the browser, refresh. Now if I move the mouse there, you see I can see the element. So which means the element is actually there and I can interact with it. So this is the advantage opacity has over the visibility property and the display none property. So these are we can hide element in CSS.